Well, we're inside of 3 months now until city election day here in Du Bois County, and we're going to start off. We've got Democratic candidate for Jasper Mayor Wayne Schuetter joining us this evening.
Good evening, Bradford.
You got a chance to see John Gregg came to the Strassenfest, and you were part of all that. How did that go for you?
We had a great time. Juanita Boehm and I rode together in a '66 Mustang convertible that was my brother-in-law's, and it was a great day. I understand the parade was one of the biggest we've had, if not the biggest. The weather was great, bright blue skies, and so it was fun. U.S. Senator Donnelly was also in there. He walked behind us, had a lot of family and friends joining us, and so it was a great time.
Did you get a chance to speak much with either the governor or candidate Gregg?
I spoke a little bit with candidate Gregg, a few minutes, and also with Senator Donnelly a little bit, but they were busy getting ready for the parade, so we didn't have a lot of time to talk.
Yeah, they say much of any wisdom?
Well, they just said, wish me luck, said they had heard some good things, and keep at it. So.
Okay. Let's move some more into the big issues you're campaigning on. We'll start, I think one of the biggest ones you've mentioned is city spending.
Well, I believe very strongly in progressive growth, always have. I think you need to take a look at what the future is going to bring and how you need to get there. But at the same time, I think you need to have, especially when you're spending tax dollars, you have to have practical spending. As you know, Bradford, I was a public school teacher for 34 years. I negotiated teacher contracts. I'm well aware of tax dollars and how they should be spent. And I believe that in spending tax dollars, it is one of the basic public trusts that we have if you're an office holder or a public servant. And I think we need to make sure that when we spend dollars, we do it in a very practical way with good results.
Okay. So looking at some of the spending in the city, are there specific things you've thought about to this point?
Well, in general, I think when we had to cut $900,000 this year out of our budget. Of course, budgets are wish list, and you have to cut them back. But with the tax cap, the growth of tax revenues is going to be limited. So I think Jasper's been fortunate in that we haven't felt the squeeze of the tax cap and increased cost. And think going forward, you need to really make sure you take into consideration any future development, any developments going on, what is going to be the impact on future costs before you make the final decision. And so looking at what's happening in Jasper right now, I think in terms of economic development, I think the tax abatement program has worked, is working. I think it has, shows that the ability to give companies abatement to help them improve, expand, and create jobs is good. I do think it needs to be evaluated and perhaps modified. I was a little bit shocked when we had a company that missed their goals on jobs by 70 and didn't have much impact on their points for their abatement. So I think we need to take a look at that program that's worked well, but maybe adjust it and modify it to make it even more effective. As far as the TIF is concerned, actually the TIF has not generated any funds yet and won't, but I did learn that the assessed value of the TIF district as it stands now makes up about 20% of our total tax assessment for the city, assessment value. So moving forward, when you talk about that in growth of tax revenue from the TIF district, you really need to understand that you're taking that away from the general fund, that growth potential, and so you need to be careful how you spend those dollars so you don't increase the cost to the general fund while at the same time maintaining your growth overall economically. So I think that, so you need to really be careful how you're spending those dollars.
You kind of mentioned on a related note, with economic development comes the idea of workforce development. So what are some of your ideas there? There's a lot about we can't find the people to fill the jobs.
I think, well, as you know, again, going back to where I taught for 34 years in public schools, I can remember back about 20 years, 15 to 20 years ago, when the state started this idea of the I-STEP and testing and pushing people to four-year schools. And some of my colleagues and I were talking one day, and we said, this is going to cause a reduction in workforce because as industries and manufacturing increase, the number of people who will be qualified for those jobs will go down. And it seems like we were right. In terms of getting that number back up, from what I've heard in terms of Vincennes University and the schools and manufacturing, I think they're on the right track in terms of encouraging people to go into two-year programs instead of four, getting into the trades, working with the Vincennes University Jasper Center to develop the workforce to what the companies need. But I also think the companies need to also understand they need to go in and recruit students. They need to let students know what jobs are available, what jobs will be available in the next 2 to 4 years, especially for juniors and seniors who are trying to make that decision exactly what they're going to do with. So I think I think we're on the right track as far as education getting them ready, but I think industry needs to understand they also have a role to play.
Okay.
So.
What about the cultural development side? There's a lot being made of this Jasper Cultural Center idea and getting people to want to live in Jasper. What do you make of all that?
Well, I think it's very important. Jasper has a long history of culture, more so than what some people might realize. Some people know that I'm married to Myra Schuetter, who is a very accomplished watercolor artist. She sat on the Arts Commission for 12 years after we moved back to Jasper. She was also involved when the Arts Commission redesigned the Arts Center for expansion. But Myra always talked about, and I agreed with this, that there should always be a downtown presence for the arts. When the Astor closed, the ability to enjoy arts down in the downtown area kind of dissipated. So the Next Act group, I've talked with them. My father worked at the Astor for 60 plus years. So I understand the value of that facility to the city, and I'm very glad they've stepped up. As far as the Arts Center, I also was on the grant review committee for the Arts Center, which we gave out money from the Indiana Arts Commission to various entities around about 5 or 6 counties with this area. I also sat on the Governor's Arts Award Selection Committee in 06, 08, 10, and 12. So I have a very strong understanding of how valuable the arts are. They are very important in quality of place, quality of living. Now, when you're talking about a cultural center, Jasper has won the Governor's Arts Award twice, and it's been the only entity in the state of Indiana to do that. And the last time they did it, I was on this selection committee, which put me in a kind of a strange position. I didn't want to lobby for it, and I didn't, but I did answer questions, and I could sit there while the rest of the selection committee debated Jasper's choice. And the thing that struck them, and the thing that Jasper really needs to understand, is that it wasn't just the fact that Jasper is the only city in the state, or at least at that time was, that had an art department where tax dollars actually support the arts. They were truly impressed with the long-term public-private partnership for the arts in Jasper. The fact that the current Jasper Arts Center was built by private funds, and then the city became a partner in it. And I think going forward, whatever the cultural center comes to be, and wherever it comes to be, I think that's a very important concept. Whether the library is right there with it, that has to play out in terms of dollars and cost and location and so forth. But I think the public-private partnership is very important. I have not heard much discussion about financing the cultural center. And so to think that the taxpayers would foot that bill entirely, I think that's off the mark. I think the taxpayer should have a part to play in that, but I think the private sector should also step up and be that. When you have that public-private partnership, you have a buy-in to the community by the private sector, and that's very important for long-term continuous, especially with the arts. The arts cannot sustain from only tax dollars, because when things get tight, arts are usually some of the first things to get cut. You see that in the schools, you'd see it in the public. So I think it's very important that going forward with a cultural center, again, wherever it ends up being and whatever it ends up being, I think it needs to be a public-private partnership. Also like to say along those lines, the arts department has done a great job over the last many years that they've been in existence. But it was stated at one of the meetings that there are still problems with the existing arts center that need to be addressed. And I would strongly urge the Arts Commission to take care of those problems. The current building is not ADA compliant, and it is not completely finished in my estimation, and needs to have some work done on it to bring it up to what I would call the kind of facility Jasper can be proud of for many, many years.
And as we wrap up here, you've been making the rounds a little bit, still meeting with people. You had a speech at the Rotary Club a couple weeks ago. What are the residents telling you?
Well, the residents are concerned about the spending on things that we don't seem to see the results on. A lot of outside consultants, a lot of studies, and they're wondering, why do we need all that? And so that's going back to what I said, I think practical spending. I think there are a lot of creative people, a lot of forward-thinking people here in Jasper that can create a lot of these ideas. And so I think getting those people engaged instead of spending money to get those ideas, I think would be very important. The other thing I hear from residents is, how are you going to continue economic development? And again, I said the tax payments work very well. I think the TIF needs to be looked at in terms of its size, but that's a tool that can be used and used very well if used properly. But I also think we need to look at encouraging and helping small businesses grow in the city. We've had a lot, but I think economic incentives, whether in the form of abatement or in the form of tax credits for small businesses to start up. I'd also like to see, and I've talked with members of Du Bois Strong on this, some members, that I think we need to look at Du Bois Strong or Grow Du Bois County, developing an entity that would help small businesses in terms of management, perhaps marketing, in terms of business plans, in terms of financing. There are many entities around the country where if you have an idea for a small business, but you're not sure how to develop it, you have a support group that sits down with you and says, here's how you do a business plan, here's how you finance, here are going to be your costs for the first 4 years, 3 or 4 years, here's what you're going to need to make sure you do, and so forth. And then once they get started, help them through the process. I think that has to be part of any business incubator that we either have here in the county or in the city of Jasper. So I'd like to see a push to help small businesses. Bradford is small businesses and a wide variety of small businesses that give a place its character. They give a place a real quality of place. Everyone talks about getting people back. There's nothing to do here, so forth and so on. But a lot of that comes from a wide variety of businesses, small businesses. Studios, you can have art galleries, you can have a wide variety of restaurants, you can have boutique shops, you can have craft shops, you can have other types of retail shops, small businesses, and that's what grows your business base and, again, your character.
Historically speaking, though, that's part of Jasper's fabric, too.
It is, and it has been. But I think as Jasper has grown, we seem to be really emphasizing larger companies with our tax abatement program, which is fine. The jobs are great, and they need to be there. But I think that small business fiber also needs to be emphasized more.
All right, Wayne, we appreciate your time. Best of luck on the trail.
I thank you, Bradford.
That's been our interview this evening with Jasper Democratic Mayor candidate Wayne Schuetter. We'll be back after this.